Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of the generator installation in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And today we'll be installing the service rated whole house automatic transfer switch. And so installing these is not always the easiest thing to do because you really need to have 3 different sources of wires and conductors entering this transfer switch. Obviously, we need to do the main utility supply. That would be L1 and L2. And then we also have to install the wiring from the generator to the emergency connections inside this generator, which we'll go over later. And then, of course, we need to have the wiring that goes to the electrical panel. So there's 3 sources of conductors: the line side, the generator side, and then the customer load.
Now, Ron, I don't want you electrocuting yourself.
No, definitely not.
Leave you with some shocking results.
Yeah. Well, you see, like, this is the grounding electrical conductor.
Yeah.
And if something's not bonded correctly, this could become energized.
Ooh.
Especially if that bare wire becomes disconnected from there out to where it connects on the street. Then the return current would flow on this. But it's pointy, right?
Yeah, right.
So you think you're getting shot.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If the utility's grounded neutral conductor becomes undone, the electrons still find a path back to the source through the grounding electroconductors and the grounding electrodes that are installed as part of the grounding system. This is an example of why it's so important to fully understand your grounding and bonding when you're going to be doing electrical work, especially on the service here. If you don't understand those principles, then if that system neutral is busted and you touch this grounding electroconductor, you become a part of the path of the entire current flowing through that house. And you could very well be dead as a result of that. So this is why it's super important to get a good understanding and to spend time in the classroom learning grounding and bonding prior to getting your electrical license and installing automatic transfer switches. This is a 200 amp emergency disconnect as required by the National Electric Code. When I originally did this service in 2020, I forgot that Massachusetts was using the 2020 code already. And at this time in New Jersey, we were still using the 2017, so we did not have this requirement. So I upgraded the service, did a really nice job, and then found out that it didn't pass inspection because it requires this emergency disconnect. So this is different than a service disconnect. This emergency disconnect does not contain any of the grounding and bonding required for a whole house service upgrade, which is at the main disconnect. This is separate from the main disconnect. This is just an emergency disconnect as defined by the National Electric Code. So what did I do? I had to go back up there and install this disconnect. Today, 2 years later or so, or 3 years later, they're living in the house and we're going to be taking this disconnect out and put in the whole house automatic transfer switch. It's service rated and it's 200 amps, made by Generac. And any questions you might have about this, please hit me up down in the comment section. It's definitely a good idea to hire a licensed electrician to do this work. Sure, if you're mechanically skilled, you want to try this, that's great. Thing is, when you're doing this work, you're really up against getting the power turned back on. So if you don't have some material and the supply house is closed or it's late at night and Home Depot is closed, you don't have the power back on, you really could be screwed. So this is definitely money well spent. Coming from an electrician, obviously, I know what's involved in doing this work. And believe me, I fall asleep at night thinking about what I'm going to do at work the next day and how I'm going to attack things and get things done so that I can be done at a reasonable time and be able to do whatever else is on my schedule for the rest of the day. So here, what I'm doing is I took the panel cover off, and what we're doing here is we're getting rid of the the service conductors that supply the power to the main breaker here. And right now there's 2 hots and a neutral or a system ground. We're getting rid of that, and we're going to run a 4 conductor called a riser cable between this panel and the automatic transfer switch on the exterior. But my first order of business is to disconnect the service entrance conductors and install a new equipment grounding bus to physically bond this entire enclosure. And then later on, what we'll do is we'll remove the main bonding jumper, because all of the system bonding is going to be done in the automatic transfer switch as designed when you're doing a non-separately derived electrical system like this one here. So you need to drill a couple of pilot holes, and I'm just using a hand threader right here to thread the enclosure so that I can use the required bolts that come with the equipment grounding bus, specific just for the square D panel here. And then we're also going to add a lug large enough for 2-aught aluminum, which is what the equipment grounding conductor is, in a 4-wire service entrance riser cable for a 200 amp main lug only panel, which is what this will be once we're done wiring.
This cable here that you put in, that you're basically working with now, is that system out to the generator, or is that generator back to the panel?
This is the utility power.
Right.
I'm sorry, this is power from the transfer switch to supply the power to this.
Right.
Right, and then this wire right here also goes to the transfer switch.
Right.
And when it goes from utility to generator, it energizes the same set of conductors from a different source.
Right.
Right, so you have the generator. This is your live wire from the generator.
Right.
And then you also have live power from the street.
Yeah, this is coming from the generator.
Correct.
Power. Right.
It's going to power the transfer switch when the utility loses the power.
Right.
So these wires are always here, like this, but they're either going to be powered from the utility or from the generator.
Right.
Exactly.
And this is also going
to a sub. No, that's a sub panel.
Oh, it's not going to the.
That's the sub panel in that room back there.
Oh, to that other room back there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's see, because I'm looking at that and I thought maybe you just put that in. I'm confused as to.
No, but when I saw that, I said I'm gonna think. I forgot you had that panel back there. But yeah, I'm using the same path basically that they used, just so it looks uniform. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Very nice, neat job.
I try, Sal. Oh, this thing broke. All right. The reason why we isolate our grounds and neutrals in this panel is because this becomes what's known as a sub panel. The only place on an electrical system where the grounds and neutrals are bonded together with the grounding electrode conductors to the system grounding conductor is at the main disconnect, and that will be the automatic transfer switch outside. This footage is muted so you guys don't hear Steve Miller, Jungle Love, for the 4 billionth time if you're listening to classic rock. That's why there's no sound here. I never knew the greatness of the Myers hubs until recently. And so what I used here was a 2-inch male adapter coming out of the bottom of the meter, and just a little small filler piece between the 2 male adapters. And then, of course, the male adapter that ties into the Myers hub at the top of the transfer switch here. And the Myers hub, what it's going to do is it's a preventative measure from keeping water out of the transfer switch. So that's why I used it. So here I'm just doing like a dry fit to try to figure out how I'm going to attach this automatic transfer switch, because it's not as easy as it looks. I got to attach it to the bottom of the meter here. And then I also need to bring 2 cables in. One set of cables or one service riser cable that goes to the electrical panel down in the basement. And then the other cable is the cable coming from the generator in the backyard. And so both of these are going to go into the bottom section of this automatic transfer switch enclosure, but it just takes me a little bit of time to figure out how that's going to happen. And so that's what I'm working on here, and I'm measuring, and I'm figuring these things out a little bit at a time. So there is only so much room to get these cables into the back of this transfer switch here, because obviously the lower I go with the transfer switch, the less of a chance I have to find that rim joist to bring my wires through. So this is what I'm doing is I'm making the knockouts in the transfer switch, and then I'll mark them on the house before making the holes in the rim joist and slide my wires. Okay, so obviously there's a lot of ways to do this, and you could measure things and do approximations, but I like to get a nice dry fit. When I say a dry fit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this enclosure up on this. That's the service entrance riser to the panel that's there. And the hole on the bottom side on the right is where the generator cable is going to enter the transfer switch here. But here I just want to get a dry fit, and then I want to mark the hole that I have made right there in the bottom right hand corner for the generator wire. And then I'm going to mark it, I'll take it back off, and then I'll make my permanent holes and then slide the generator cable into position. Now, when you're making these holes in the rim joist, you got to make them large enough to fit the connector behind the panel here, so it sits in place. And then what we do is we fill it in with duct seal and to keep the moisture out. And then on the other side, we're going to fill that with the spray foam insulation. This section is also muted so you don't hear some song that they were playing on 70s on 7, the Casey Kasem Top 40 Countdown show. It was one of those songs. We listened to that most of the time while we were working here. So if there's no sound and there's talk like this, that's why. It's a copyright strike, so that's why it's like that. Once the hole is drilled, I go down into the basement and I pass out the generator cable to Sal here. And if you're thinking that's a lot of extra wire and what a waste that is, I'll tell you that it's better to be a mile too long than an inch too short, but not 2 miles, because that shit is expensive. So at this point, I'm ready to load my wires for the final time through the connectors. And I'm just going to slide these. The connectors are oversized for the cable, so there's no resistance of the cable going through the connector. And I'm just going to slide this up. Now the trick is to leave a little bit of slack on these cables and then get the nipple on the top to go into the male adapter coming out of the bottom of the meter. I hope you can follow what I'm saying there, because this is not easy with these 3 different entry points here to get this attached and have it just right and be able to secure it, and there's nothing in the way, and moving the cable out of the way, then moving the exterior grounding block out of the way. Then of course you want to cover up where the old shingles are worn out from, or weathered I should say, so you're not showing any of those, so it looks normal when it's done, which is not always easy when you're doing this electrical work. But here eventually I get this up, and I use stainless steel screws with stainless steel washers with the duct seal behind them to attach it to the wall. While I'm doing this already, this will give people perspective. They know, everybody knows I work by myself here, so I don't always get these good
normal for the screen to...
What's that?
Is it normal for the screen to dim?
Yes, it gets dark after a while. You could just tap it with your finger and it'll come back.
Yeah, it did.
Did that?
Man, this thing is the coolest.
The GoPro?
Yeah.
You like it? So the iPhone camera is really just as good, or if not better. Except when I'm using the iPhone and I'm recording, I need to listen to music or whatever. So that's why I got the GoPro. Marissa actually bought the GoPro for me. In the back room, you can faintly hear Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. I hope that this won't be a copyright strike since it's on in the background and I'm kind of singing out loud a little bit. I hope that's not violating any terms of agreement on this platform. So that's why the volume is muted. N1 and N2 is where you terminate your load side from the meter utility conductors, your line side conductors from the utility. E1 and E2 is where your generator connections are from the generator. And then T1 and T2 goes down to the electrical panel in the basement. Here you can see that white wire with the blue stripe. That's for a future product from Generac. That's going to be brand new. It's a neutral wire for the controller. This generator feeder that I have that contains the feeders, the two hots, the neutral, and the ground from the generator. It also comes with the control wire. So normally there are 6 control wires. There's N1, N2, and T1. Then there's also 0, 23, and 194. In this particular cable assembly, there was an additional control wire that was blue-white, and or white-blue, white with a blue line. And I wasn't sure what it does, but from what I understand from one of my close friends, Devin, he tells me that Generac will be introducing some new equipment that's going to require a neutral conductor, and that's what their neutral conductor is going to be for. Something to do with the controller between the transfer switch and the generator. So this wire is probably very new, and Generac doesn't even have the stuff yet to cover it, so to install it. So it's installed, and maybe we can upgrade it later on. What the upgrade is going to be, I don't know. I guess I'll keep you posted once I find out, and we'll go from there. So there's an extra signaling conductor between the transfer switch and the generator on this project. Now, when I'm terminating these conductors, what I like to do is I like to terminate all my equipment grounding conductors first, and then all my grounded neutrals second, before finally connecting my generator cable and, of course, the panel. And it just makes sense to do that because all these wires, you want to put them in a nice workmanlike manner. And so if you do these first in this order, the conductors will sit nice and neat inside the transfer switch here, which is what any good tradesman will do. So as you can see, I have the neutrals and grounds terminated, and now I'm going to start terminating the, I think the T1 and T2, which would be the panel conductors first, and then I'll terminate the generator conductors second, so that the conductors aren't in the way when you're terminating. That's why we do that. Also, what I'm doing is I'm making sure I use plenty of Penetrox here, even though it's not required, because I believe it's a good product to protect your aluminum conductors. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, please do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you like this content and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate it, and I hope you're getting a lot of value and or entertainment out of these videos. I enjoy making them. I enjoy teaching people what exactly I'm doing here. Being an electrician, I hope you enjoy it. And also hit that notification bell if you're so inclined to get notifications when I upload new videos. Thank you very much. So the last thing I had to finish here was the grounding electrodes. I had one ground rod number 6 cable. I had another number 6 cable going to that equipment grounding block on the side of the panel here. And then, of course, my water main, which I had to extend, also comes into the bottom of this panel. Finally, at this point, I'm able to attach the final conductors to the load side of the meter. Now, you got to be careful. Inside that meter on the line side, there's live power. And so you got to be careful not to hit that stuff. And so what I found is to terminate the meter at the meter first, and then work your wires inside the larger enclosure below, because you have more room to adjust your conductors into those terminals. This is 4/0 aluminum, and if you've worked with this before, you know it's not the simplest wire to manipulate and bend. So the more room that you have, the easier it will be to bend that conductor, which is why I terminate inside the transfer switch second. I'm checking my work here with my T6 digital voltage display fluke testers here. And what I'm doing is I'm testing resistance, and I'm checking for continuity between any of my hot conductors and ground to make sure there's no faults in place that happened during the installation. Once I get the clear, all clear, then I could put the meter in and re-energize the service to this house. So let's put the meter in, then let's turn on the main automatic transfer switch disconnect, and then the main disconnect inside the house, and all the power is back on. Here we go. By the way, that light's pretty bright, huh?
It is, and
on the batteries.
And it's going and going.
Yeah, well, I put on a lower setting when I'm not down here.
See, that's the thing about the LEDs.
There we go, 246 volts. Now we're gonna turn this one on. You ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, transfer switch is in. Nice, huh? Very good. So as you can see inside the panel there, we changed the ground wire. The neutral just used to come in here, it was just a 3-wire. Now it's a 4-wire.
Right.
And that equipment grounding conductor goes right to this lug into the bar. And so each of the equipment grounding conductors from each circuit are now isolated from the neutral. I gotta pull the, hang on a second. I think I gotta pull, yes, I gotta take out the bonding screw here. Otherwise all that work is for nil. Now we're all set. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this. If you're still here at the end of this video, watching the whole video, I really thank you. Hit the subscribe button, and as always, we'll see you on the next one. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.